Welcome back, fans and friends. For this upcoming video, I haven't done one of these in a while. Team Transport from Hot Wheels Premium. As you know, this is the counterpart to the Hitch and Tow series from Greenlight. So anyway, we have here the Jaguar MK1 paired up with the 2023 Land Rover Defender 110. So the one thing I'm going to say about these cars, after doing some research, the visual cues, there is a V6 version of the car called the P400 and a V8 version of the car called the P525, also known as the Land Rover 110 V8. You will probably will never know if this is that because there is no indication of what it is. And just quickly with this one, the only thing that tells me this may be the 3.4 liter version of the MK1 is usually they would remove the wheel spats on the back to make room for the wire wheels with the knockoff hubcaps. Unfortunately, the other big difference would have been the grille. Unfortunately, through production, they actually switched the grille from the 3.4, which required more airflow, as backwards compatible to the 2.4. So moving forward, after a certain point, both the 2.4 liter engines and the 3.4 liter engines would have had the large grille. So other than that wheel spat thing, there will be, unless we see a 3.4 somewhere on the car, we will not know. This is actually a Jaguars from 1955 to 1959, one of their best-selling saloon cars. So in North America, we would call that a sedan. Sedan is 4-door, coupe is 2-door, usually, not all the time. And obviously, this is an SUV, one of Land Rover's best in terms of all-wheel drive, off-road, and readily available, especially with nowadays with the cancellation of a lot of the other large-size SUVs. So the Ford Bronco would compete with this. The Toyota FJ Cruiser and Land Cruiser used to compete with this. Jeep has, I want to say the Wagoneer, but that's kind of big. Ford obviously already brought it up, the Bronco. Chrysler, I guess we'll think of something that works. So in this series, is obviously they come in triples. So we have here, I think this is the best one in terms of what you get, because you get an actual two vehicles rather than the Sakura Sprinter and the. Now this one I have never seen. So this one, I believe if I did get it, I saw it on the shelf, I would probably get it because, like I said, sometimes you just get something because you don't have it already. Do I really want the Toyota Corolla 11? Maybe, maybe not, but I definitely don't want that because I already have two, I think. They're okay, but the trailer and the SUV is probably the best deal. As you can see, if you're collecting these things, the back packaging is nice and colored. We get everything we not usually do from Hot Wheels, Mattel, T41As for the release, and all the recycling / information on the manufacturers. I am not entirely familiar with GNC, but we know spark plugs by Sparco. Advan, which is usually a Nissan related aftermarket performance enhancing like Holly and all that other stuff. Jaguar, Land Rover, Lamborghini, Toyota, and then this is basically recycling, which is not really a car manufacturer. You see there from last year. And obviously, you know that these are not usually compatible with their sets because they have two-part wheels. They're very wide and they will go right off the track. And as we can see here, what the other thing that probably lends this thing to be the 3.4 rather than the 2.4 is its racing setup with this. Now we have a Manor in the background, and obviously he's not going to drag race in his own front yard with this car, but they were used for touring, rallies, and a bunch of other things that did very well. Australian Touring Car Championship, for example, in 1960. The top 3 cars, I believe, were these Jaguars. So they do have some sort of pedigree, and as we can see here, there's a lot of off-road aftermarket additions to this car, which are not pictured here. So, for example, you have the roof lights, you have the roof rack, the 2 gas cans, and the spare tire, which, by the way, if you care, I prefer a spare tire in the back. When I used to have my old vehicle, I had 2 or 3 collisions. And I'm not saying get into collisions, but you'd rather them hit the spare tire than the back of the car, especially on something like this, which is going to be like a 85 to 100 grand. And then you have even more expensive models that are even more than that. But also, if you have a flat tire, I don't know what your motivation is to go under the vehicle to get the wheel out. if you indeed have a spare. So that's just, especially if you're off-roading the desert and a forest in several feet of snow, I would prefer to have the tire on the back rather than underneath it. It makes the car a little bit longer and it's obviously susceptible to the weather, but I do believe underneath the car is actually worse. Anyway, other features of this car are the running boards. We see there the exhaust, which leads me to believe it probably is the V8 version of the car. However, we can see that Mattel has not upgraded their painting process, so therefore we will never know. We'll just pretend it is. We have the 3.4 here and the V8 version of Jaguar. It's a supercharged and turbocharged engine. So for those of you who are familiar with such, the difference is one uses exhaust gases from the engine to make it maintain the oxygen levels, while the other uses mechanical timing chain. So you get this nice plastic insert. You can see there the trailer. It is exactly similar to the one that we had with the Ford RS200 rally car. So these are probably very much interchangeable. And honestly, this would have been a nice addition for that set. The Ford, nothing wrong with the Ford the way it is, but anyway. Starting with the front, we have Land Rover right there. For once, we can actually read it. Defender just above it. We have the hood. So for the supercharger and turbocharger, obviously you have the inlet here. This one does not, because it is Mattel and they don't really spend as much money on R&D and the extras of having it open. In fact, I think only M2 and a few versions of Greenlight's cars have that at all. So I'll just quickly bring this up. There is no snorkel on this car. Or I think it's right here. Yes, so I apologize. I just noticed the snorkel right there. So where's the snorkel? You see this thing here? And how it's not connected there. It is literally a plastic, aluminum, or sorry, not aluminum, metal. So it can be any metal you want. Or a plastic tube that feeds oxygen to the engine if the car happens to go underwater. And the reason for that is you don't get hydrolock, which is water getting into the engine. Water is not combustible, and it causes the engine to seize. Watch the YouTube videos. There are lots of people who think they have an off-road vehicle, but until they hit the water, they really don't. Anyway, so I was just about to bring up the snorkel right there. There's the roof lights, which I would have loved on the Lancia in the front, the 37 and the Stratos. We have the bumper grille extension. We have the bumper there. We have 3D painted lights, left and right, done mostly right. No complaints about that. Window wipers etched in. They are the same color as the backing around the windshield. We have the windshield, which is not relatively easy to see through, and highly reflective, opaque, and rather than transparent or translucent actually. Rear view mirrors, which is great. Any other details? We have here the side, the large off-road tires. We have, like I brought up before, the running boards, which I am a fan of, especially if you're getting out of a very large vehicle. I believe this competes also with the Infiniti QX series, the QX56, for example, QX80, which, by the way, is coming up in a upcoming video. We have the roof rack for tying things down. Obviously, I brought it up before, 2 gas cans on the other side. You can only imagine if this is the V8 and you're getting very, let's just say, less than adequate mileage. It's probably more than it looks essential. You have the gas cap. If this is a British car, unfortunately, I can't quite see where the steering is on this vehicle, but I would prefer it to be on the side of the driver, even if it's a right-hand drive car. It's fine. On to the back. So we have there the door handle, lights. Oh, okay, so here's the last thing. So this is, in fact, the V8 version of the car. How do I tell that? The 4 exhaust. The V6, I think, only has 2 on the right driver side, I believe, or it could be, but the V8 one will have the dual exhaust on either side. So there we have it. This is, in fact, the V8 version of the car, which is fantastic. That is the one I wanted, even though, I mean, as to makes no difference. But if you're looking for the V8 version and you don't want to spend $85,000 on the actual one, here it is. This cost me a little bit more than, I guess, because the price went up, but it's still less than 20 bucks anyway. I got it on sale at Toys R Us. So we have the quad exhaust, which tells us this is the V8 version of the car. We have, like I said, the spare tire, the trailer hitch, which is much better than it was done on the Greenlight Bronco, because we know for sure it's going to fit, which is great. Once again, the windows are translucent. We can't really see into the vehicle. You can just see there the gap between the gas cans. So this whole thing is just stamped in there. And oh, I apologize, it's not actually a gas can on the left side, it's just stairs. So perhaps you could take this vehicle and put it into the Greenlights trailer series where they camping, I forget what they call it, but they have a series where I've done where they put tents in random parts of the car. This would be perfect. It's basically a hotel with all these all-weather tires. So it's exactly ideal for that. Rear view mirrors, I didn't notice before, but they do have the silver reflective. It's not quite as good as some of the other ones we've seen, but it's here. So no gas cap on this side, but once again, I cannot see into the cab very well. So, oh yeah, so it is a left-hand drive vehicle. I can just see now. At a particular angle, you can go and see the raised part right there. That's the steering wheel, not present on that side. So this is a left-hand drive car with the gas cap on the opposite side. So underneath, finally, this is probably the four-wheel drive version of the car. The 2023, obviously, Land Rover Defender 110. We know it's the V8 because of the quad exhaust, and we know it's a four-wheel drive vehicle. There are rear-wheel vision versions of the car, but I highly doubt people who get the V8 option only get it with two-wheel drive, unless they're drag racing it, maybe. I don't know. So, all in all, I actually happen to like this vehicle. I'm not usually a fan of Land Rover, but I do believe they have done better than they usually do with this car. The one major letdown, like I said, is the opaque, translucent. I believe it's more translucent than opaque. You can just see inside of it, but you can't see very well. So that's unfortunate. And then there's no markings to tell us if it's the V8. The only evidence we have, like I said, is these four exhaust on the back. Door doesn't open, nothing else. So its major selling point is it comes with the trailer and the other car and the hitch here. Overall, I'd say that's a reasonably well done Land Rover for once. Like I said, I actually happen to like this vehicle as it is done here. So next up, we will take 2 seconds, do this trailer, standard Mattel width. We have actually unusually here a setup hitch. I am not quite sure what this is. Probably a fire extinguisher and or transport accessories. We can just see there it has the legal lights, so you can take it on the road. And then for those of you who don't know much about assembly, it just literally goes on like that. So like I said, I'll probably take this and put it with the RS200 instead of that van. And so there we have it. And finally, not the star of the show, because I don't know if this would be cheaper than that Land Rover. But anyway, we have here the right-hand drive MK1. I do believe it's a 3.4. There is no way to prove it because, like I said, the grills from the 2.4 were retroactively changed halfway through production to the same grill as the 3.4. You have the lights taped over for rallying and touring car, so when you hit the glass is what they used to make them out of. It's not like today's plastic. The problem with plastic, it does shatter, but you can run it over relatively safely. Glass, you cannot. And it's just a slight difference. Anyway, we have the impact bumper on the side, on the front there, you can see. And this was actually years before they made it mandatory. Everything you can see here, it's the fuzzy grain ink that they use for their printing process of the paint onto the cars, which is still subpar. This one we can clearly see into the cabin. Steering is on the right. 386 on the side. This is the right hand side of the car. It's 4-door, which makes it saloon. The one thing I will say though is the knockoff wheels, because of the way Mattel adds the wheels on, unlike M2 or Greenlight, where the middle pin goes onto the inside of the wheel. We cannot tell if these are the center knockoff ones that you would have, period. But I do know that this whole thing would have been green for the earlier versions without the knockoff wire wheels. And the wheel spats, they call them, would have covered it up. Thus, that's what the only other evidence I have for this being the 3.4 other than the 2.4. It literally has no other markings on the car to tell us that. There's the gas cap. And obviously Jaguar Race Cat, so that's what it's for. That's how I can tell it's probably 3.4 because the 3.4 was the one used for racing. So there are actually two things that tell us this is the racing version of the car. Other than that, it's nice and easy to see into the cabin, whether you have the glass or not. The driver and the passenger front seats do not have the plastic for the windshield, sorry, the side glass, so you can see right through them. And overall, it is not a poorly done vehicle. And onto the underside, you can just see probably the worst part of it. But unusually, it's not the high chrome version. Jaguar MK1, so this is a relatively new release, 2 years old. Ironically, the same as the model for that Land Rover. And as you can see there, differential transfer case, and it is a, I believe, rear-wheel drive car because of this thing. If the rear wheels don't have to be powered, we don't have this. And for exhaust, just the two on the outside here. I'm trying to think, I think it was a 2.4 liter, but I'm not sure as to the cylinders. I think it was a V6, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, so fans and friends, the one thing I didn't show is the lack of a Jaguar hood ornament, which I don't believe was very common to this vehicle. Like I said, it was released 1955, but one of the major things Jaguar has going for it is the hood ornament. You have there inlets for the air. I don't see any evidence of a window wiper, which is highly unusual, but then you go, it is British, so there you go. So fans and friends, thank you for sitting through this video. It is actually surprisingly good pairing. Like I said, I think I like this one much better than I like that one, and I originally bought it for that reason. So what I am saying is basically there's no way other than the quad exhaust here to tell if it is the V8, but because of that, I believe it is the V8. And we don't know if it's right or left-hand drive, because I do believe it is left-hand drive because you can just see underneath there the steering wheel. Very hard to see. Comes with a snorkel, so that's cool. Like I said, truly off-road, because like I said, if you go into anywhere where the water is this deep, you will hydrolock the engine. In most cars, the snorkel keeps the air breathing apparatus above. I am unsure as to whether you close a lever inside the car. I'm pretty sure you do. It's probably not automatic, although there probably are inventing sensors for that. And the other major thing to note is the two-piece tires, but we've brought this up before with Hot Wheels Premium. They usually are, which is great. And so other than that, if you can't find yourself the 90 to 110 grand for a Land Rover Defender 110 version, this is the V8, I believe. You can just go out and buy this. Not quite as handy, but way cheaper. So, fans and friends, thanks for watching. This is Thomas from Toronto, and to the next one.